Welcome to Your Irish Connection, where we're having chats about how we do these Irish spirituality things. Tonight we have Paul de Paor, and we are going to have a chat. Paul is here in Waterford, in the same county as myself, and we see here that he's a big Sunglasses fan, and he's working with us together for Yes for marriage equality here in Ireland, which we're a big fan of. And I just had to put that middle one in, Paul, because the title of it was Metal, and it really is like, it's metal, but it's also like just your personality with the Muggles badges and everything. It's just so you. It's just so you. And I believe this one's with a gorilla. So but that's your blue steel look, so I thought I'd just put that one in too.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
I'd like to say that poor gorilla is actually deceased, but anyway.
Oh. That's Harry the gorilla, is it?
That is ex-Harry.
Harry, yeah. In Dublin Zoo. Okay. We're stuck on your photographs. No, we're not. Okay. So, Paul, when and where did your interest in Irish spirituality begin?
I suppose for me anyway, it was something that developed and grew over time. And I suppose where I'm originally from, which was like the Hill of Tara, and that was always a huge point in my life. Growing up, we were always cycling to the Hill of Tara, being up in the Hill of Tara. Any excuse was to get up to the Hill of Tara. And it all kind of developed then from learning about where Tara sits, we say, in the legends and the folklore and the history of the country. So that's where my kind of interest in, say, especially, Irish spirituality began. And over the years then, I suppose, there was a few little kind of, I brought it up at the moots a couple of times where along the lines of where my grandfather was quite interested in, say, Irish mythology, Irish history. So I suppose from the age of about 7 or 8, it was one of those things that my grandfather did with me. He brought me to some of the kind of old sites. Newgrange, Doubt. Now hadn't been open at this particular point. And one day in particular, I got there and the site was actually open, so it meant I could actually get down into the actual passage tomb. And that was my first kind of feeling of being drawn towards something that wasn't mainstream Christianity.
Yeah.
And that was about 7 or 8, so it was quite, for me, it was hard to put. I couldn't put a tag on it at that time, but just something didn't sit right with me. Something didn't feel right.
Yeah.
So it was then, through, I suppose, all the Celtic stories and stuff that I actually, when I started in national school, I did a lot of kind of my own kind of research. I mean, at that stage, like you're talking, there was no internet. It was books. Yeah. So you're talking about going down to the library, and then you were hearing all these different characters that were mentioned, we say, through the folklore, we say, the Mórrígan and Boan, and there was all these different stories. So that sparked my interest then during late national school, and then especially in secondary school. It was then I kind of really grasped it with both hands and started doing my own kind of investigations into it. So yeah, that's kind of where it all started from.
Yeah. And so, like, say from there, when you moved on from, so like national school, just again, for anybody who's outside Ireland, we have primary school or national school up until the age of about 12, maybe 13, and then on into secondary school. And so that's where Paul's talking about. And when did you start realizing that like paganism was a thing? Like, what age were you? And like, did you have books or events or courses or people you met? Like, how did that start? Because we'd be a similar age. I'll be 40 now this month. Are you?
Snap, I'm older.
You're older, yeah.
Yeah, because when I was growing up, it was all black and white. There's no colour.
Did you even have TVs, Paul?
We had a TV that there was no remote control. You had to
Twiddle
literally
on it, yeah.
So yeah, I suppose growing up was like you were saying there, practically how do you go about getting started, the kind of books, what was paganism? As you've seen from my earlier photographs, heavy metal and that kind of genre, would have been rife in it when I was growing up. So there was that, I suppose there was that pop culture of it. We'll say within heavy metal, there was the likes of Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin. So there was all these, and Jethro Tull. So there was always these little kind of throwbacks to these different types of religions. And then especially with the links with Tara, then it was the Druids and what was a Druid. So it was literally about going down to the library to kind of find out just a little bit more about what these things were. Now, it's very hard to get at that stage a book would say on what is a Druid, or Druidry or Witchcraft 101. It was nearly nigh near impossible to find anything like that. So a lot of it was kind of soul searching and finding bits here, bits there. As regards to say, so the books.
What was your first book that you found then?
That would have kind of had anything along those lines?
Yeah, like specifically pagan, because I'm just fascinated. Like I know, like going back through, through the years, like I would have had a very similar journey to that. And as you say, like it just, you couldn't get, I mean, even in like, if you could even afford a bookshop, getting into Dublin and, going into Eason's, and there was just, there were no, well, there probably were, but they weren't really on sale in Ireland, like, and they definitely weren't in the libraries. And, we didn't have the internet, so you couldn't just mail order anything. So like, I'm just really interested, like, in like, particularly in Ireland, like, what was the first touch with like specific paganism that you had? Because I love mapping that back through the history and kind of, through our own community.
Yeah, well, I suppose, I mean, for me anyway, like when you talk about paganism, it was like literally trying to find out what it was or where it was coming from. So I was lucky enough to kind of, I suppose, growing up in a kind of small country village, it was very hard to actually find anyone in around that area. So, I mean, for me, I like that again, we're going back to kind of pop culture where what was paganism or where did it kind of sit in the ethos of different things. Now, I hadn't actually prepped for this, so just bear with me. It was just something. One of the first things, and I know you're a huge Tank Girl fan. And I just got, this was one of the main sources for me. It's a book, graphic novel, not comic. So it was Colonial, and it was called The Horned God. So that for me kind of encapsulates a lot of Irish folklore and Welsh mythology and kind of all mishmashes it. So that to me kind of spoke volumes. As for going in to find books, I was literally like that, going into Dublin libraries, trying to find those books, try to rent them out. And it was just, looking back on it, I don't even know how I ended up arriving at this particular point, because it wasn't a case of going into Eason's and actually buying these books. So I was literally trying to find out as much as I could from just doing basic research into how I was drawn towards a certain person or to a certain deity, who that person was. And a lot of the stuff was quite piecemeal. So it was only, I'd say in the last 15 years, I'd say. So that would be, maybe 20 years. I started to be able to go out and actually find these books. And I mean, they started off quite simply. Like I think I said it to you, I was like, I remember wanting to go to Salem, and learning a bit about Wicca then, and we'll say Laurie Cabot books. So I could get them. They were quite accessible, but when it came to actually Irish spirituality, they were even harder to come by. Because we say Wicca, and it was not something that I was personally drawn towards. So while I could find books on Wicca, but I found it very hard to find books, say, on Irish rituals or Celtic rituals.
Yeah.
And then trying to find either people that were, I suppose, similar to myself. So that I found was quite difficult.
Yeah.
And then with some of the events then that were coming up, I suppose, because they were quite recent, but it was, you know, I suppose the Irish Draoi was a huge thing for me.
Yeah.
And then I suppose over the years, then I was lucky enough to kind of bump into. That sounds crazy, but you would bump into people who say at Tara.
Yeah, no, that's very common.
You know,
yeah.
So for me, that was like, it was like, it's hard to describe, but that for me was kind of the main place where I go. And then you get meeting people and you get talking to people. I met some great people up there, like, you know, Carmel Devaney, she's a Druid, and I got talking to them, and, you know, with Trassa then as well. So I got meeting a lot of like-minded people, but it was more because I was open to what was happening up there.
Yeah.
So that was kind of how I kind of started.
Yeah. And did you go to, like, what was the first Féile Draoi that you went to? Because we started in 2003. So, like, it sounds like I said, it sounds like you've had that's a really common kind of path to it, especially if you don't, you know, if you don't want to take up Wicca. A lot of people I find in Ireland took up Wicca because it was kind of the only thing that was available for, you know, back in the day, like, you know, in the 80s, say Janet and Stuart Farrar were running a coven here, like, so, the 70s even maybe, but appearing on the Late Late Show and shit, but so, like, that was kind of available, but as you say, like, there wasn't, you know, there weren't any kind of Druid groups publicly or whatever, and the only way to kind of find anything was to literally go out on the sites and places like Tara and just try and meet people, you know, because chances are, like, if you're at one of the sacred sites at a solstice or an equinox or, you know, a Bealtaine, you're going to meet people who are of like mind to you, you know. It's a good bet, like.
And it's not like, you know, we say, for me anyway, it's not like the Hill of Tara was like the concourse of a train station. You know, because a lot of this stuff was either done under the cover of darkness or late at night. It wasn't a huge, you know, it's not something that was going to be fanfared or trumpets blown, because, you know, even to this day, like, it's still quite, you know, if you say to someone you're a pagan, I mean, I suppose because of the kind of church connotations towards that, is they're expecting me to go out, like, you know, on a full moon and do unspeakable things to cats and stuff.
Oh, do you not get the naked one? Because that was the one that plagued me my entire life.
No. I was never that attractive enough to be considered naked. So I think for other people's point of view, it was easier to imagine me doing something horrific.
Right.
Yeah. But,
oh, that's actually a very disturbing insight, because it was lots of, like, old village men who, you know, would be passing those rumors around. So.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, it was difficult. Like, and, you know, even, I suppose, even after moving down here, like, with trying to get, we'll say, like, a moot going or to find like-minded people. Now, having said that, like, I mean, people knock the internet, or especially with the recent developments on Facebook, but to be honest with you, it does bring people who are looking for either information or looking for guidance or bringing people together. It does do that.
Absolutely.
So I suppose my first Féile Draoi, I think, was about 2005.
Yeah.
2005, 2006.
Yeah, the first one was in 2003. I figured I remembered you from, like, very early on anyway with them. Your face from around anyway.
Yeah, mugshots. But yeah, kind of like skulking in the shadows and just, you know, I suppose just trying to get to meet people. And there was, for me anyway, because that would have been my first kind of real connection with a lot of different people and from different viewpoints and different types of spirituality. It was great for me. it really was nearly like coming home or finding a nice place to belong, because up to this point I had been doing a lot of, say, kind of solitary work, just myself, and just to find this, it was just, for me, it was genuinely an amazing experience, and it was good. So
yeah. Okay, so what sort of things do you do on a daily, weekly, monthly, seasonal basis to explore or express your Irish spirituality?
It would vary, and it would always start, and it was something that I was always very conscious of as it was, I suppose, growing up. But it was always like the main thing regards my Irish spirituality was I kind of developed my own. I wouldn't say I developed my own kind of style. So when it comes to where I'm drawn from or where I'm coming from, would be like I would worship and be drawn towards the Mórrígan. So every morning, before I even attempt to go for a cup of coffee, I would end up lock myself in our box room, where I have a little kind of nice little safe space, and I'll do a little meditation, and just to ground myself and just to kind of put a direction on where I'm going for the day.
Yeah.
And that would be my first thing before I do anything else. Then it would be the cup of coffee and a cup of tea. And then during the day, then I would try and always go and tend to stuff like I do enjoy gardening, and one of the great things that I ended up doing was, I remember growing, I have an ash tree out the back of our house, and I grew that from a small seed that I got in Tara.
Yeah.
So I always have that kind of close to home.
Yeah.
So I've kind of constructed a little kind of outdoor altar, say, out the back of the house, where it's nice and sheltered, and I have the tree overhanging, so it's nice for me to go out, and even I'm just pottering there or just spending a bit of time there. And that's usually daily. Well, it would be every day. So during the week then, I would always do my own kind of little rituals. I have my own kind of diary, my own book of, I suppose, a book of shadows. So I'd always have different things that I would be writing into that, or when I'm doing dedications, say, to the Mórrígan, I'd always kind of incorporate them into my book. And then during the monthly, then I would always try or during the week at least, would be to try and get to a sacred site. So for me, that would be, say, Galstown, Galstown Dolmen, or the Galstown Ring Fort that's there as well.
Yeah.
So I've kind of been going to that quite regularly now as well. But then monthly then as well, I would always try, and we have the Nemnock well up in Tara. So we've a few of us had managed to kind of bring it back from being forgotten and, I suppose, lost, to actually doing it up. But that would be one thing that I would feel I'm tasked to do. So this coming weekend, I'll be going up to the Nemnock on Tara. So I'll be doing a lot of kind of gardening, gardening and maintenance around the well, just to try and bring it back. So that for me would be my part of trying to give back a little bit, say, to my deity as well. And then I would always try and get out and do my own little rituals then as well, to mark the festivals and mark Samhain, mark Beltane, and always try and do that then as well. So so. And
I suppose monthly as well, like the pair of us, just for anybody who's not familiar, we started the Washburn Move nearly 2 years ago now, is it?
Time's flying, 18 months.
Yeah, a year and a half, and it's something, I mean, sometimes we kind of tag off if one can't go or the other can make it, but it's something, like, it is a commitment, and it's a commitment I feel is part of, like, my priesthood duties, to, like, it's part of my pastoral duties, if you like, community kind of service, to keep that safe space. And I think, Paul, like, I'm very, very grateful, like, that, you were around and you were willing to do that, because it's something that, like, I would have had to do on my own, certainly. And I know you tried to do it on your own, and it's just hard. Like, it's hard when you're trying to do it when it's just you, and it's much easier when you have some kind of, partnership going on, where it's not just all on your head, like,
Oh, that's it, and I think it's good that it's there's the we say that there's ourselves, and just we've been lucky enough, to be honest with you, that we've had some great people that
Yeah,
are within the moot as well.
yeah, yeah.
So they bring everything as well. So like it really is. I feel it's a load shared.
Absolutely.
Um, even when I'm not snowed in and sick.
Yeah, absolutely. And like it's like a tag team, it's grand.
Yeah.
There's been times when I haven't been able to make it as well. So like, there's never any bother with it. But you're right. But I mean, I love that like when we started this moot, we were like, look, sure, if it's only the pair of us meeting once a month and having a pint in the pub, won't it be grand?
Yeah. Sure, it'll be all right.
It'll be grand. And we've actually, as you say, like we've been blessed with the community that's gathered around it. Um, and we will put a link to the Waterford pub moot at the end, just for anybody who's interested. Um, but yeah, like that to me now is, so I don't mean telling you your business or anything, but just for me,
Oh,
like that would be an act of exploration or expression of like my connection, because the community side of things is very much an expression of my connection to Irish spirituality. I think that it's like Irish particularly, rather than just general paganism, because, and not that obviously other places don't have community, because they do, but it's just community is such an integral part of the Irish experience and the Irish culture. And I really feel that that's expressed in our, in our paganism, really.
oh, without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, everything through history was always a shared experience. We say, especially through all the folklore. We say with the Dagda, the
Mm-hmm.
cauldron.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of that is all about everything, regardless, whether it was death, birth, marriages or whatever else. It was always a community thing. It
Yeah.
wasn't something that was like, and I that is definitely something that I really enjoy about the Waterford Move,
Mm.
is that there are so many different, like it is a real melting pot, but
Yeah.
it's a very supportive melting
Yeah.
pot, and it is so much drawn towards, rather than a case where you have all these different people just meeting and, we'll say, just being dictated to, or
Mm.
there's one person in charge and they lay what's happening down, whereas
Yeah.
everybody has to have that input. And I think that is something that's really important to, say, our spirituality, that nobody shut off or isolated from it.
Yeah. Yeah. And like it is something that we were both very much on the same page with, and when we were starting the moot, it was like it wasn't going to be the Lora or Paul show, it wasn't going to be either of us giving a class every month, or
Mm.
like we're not the bosses, we're just there, we're taking the responsibility. We have the few bits of work. It doesn't take like a lot really to pull it together, admin wise or anything like that. But we do. You do the posters and the graphics, and I do a lot on the Facebook, and
Mm.
we share the few bits of work that way. But yeah, it as you say, it's very much like it's not just one of us or either of us or both of us dictating, how everything is going to go. Like it is this community kind of melting pot, and I love it. I love it, and
Yeah.
it's so apt and it's so fitting, and it is such an expression of how I feel like a healthy Irish spirituality can be.
Oh, without a shadow, without, and I think that openness, I think, is just so important, and
Yeah.
the openness and the freedom, both personally and as a group, to be able to either, go on, like when we went away down looking at the dolmens and
Mm.
the different sacred sites around the area and stuff. So,
Mm-hmm.
it's, we just informed, like we had to, I drew up an agenda for going to a load of different sites.
Mm-hmm.
But like we only got to maybe even half of them.
Yeah.
And thankfully, I didn't throw any toys out of the pram going, well, we didn't stick to the agenda. So, there has to be that as well. Like, so.
Yeah, yeah. And it's like the three or was it 3 or 4 whatever that we got to,
Yeah.
like they were gorgeous, and it was a fantastic day out, and it was just exactly what it needed to be.
Mm. Oh, definitely. Definitely.
Yeah, so I mean, I think you've kind of answered this maybe, but with your connection to the sites, but how important is it to you personally to be in Ireland physically? Like, do you find when you travel outside Ireland, like, does your connection change or does your energy change?
Um, for me anyway, once I'm outside of, say, Ireland, like I do have a serious, I do miss the place.
Mm.
When I go traveling, and when I do go traveling, I always try and get in whatever kind of sites that are in the area and stuff like that. And yeah, it's kind of a weird one. Whereas I do think it is important at some time to be in Ireland and just to kind of soak up that energy, because I do think it does nurture and grow. But then I get kind of caught up with, people who are, we say, drawn to Ireland who are not in Ireland. And I think there is a kind of a part of somebody who's just, we say, drawn to Ireland, and they feel that connection and they feel that warmth. But I think you need to get that, you need to kind of get boots on the ground at some point. And for me anyway, like for all its faults, I do miss Ireland when I'm not here, or when I am somewhere else. I do miss it. But yeah, I do. Yeah, I don't know if I'm answering that question really well.
You are. And like, could you live anywhere else, do you think?
That's a. I mean, I think I've always have aspirations to kind of live somewhere else, but I'd be always kind of cognizant. I was kind of going. I think I could. But I think I would actually be torn. I think if I did.
Yeah.
Especially like I've often thought about, say, moving to the States or moving, say, to Europe. And Europe is not too bad because there is that kind of whole feeling and obviously where the Irishness comes from, I say.
Yeah.
So that to me is grand. But then if if I had to move to the States, I don't know how I would actually feel.
Yeah.
I'd probably be going down Fifth Avenue on St. Patrick's Day. If I was here, I wouldn't go near a parade on Patrick's Day. But I think over there, I think I would. And I think I would miss Ireland too much.
Yeah, and I think like that's, I would say, like I would hazard a guess now that that would be the majority of Irish people would be like that, and like I think maybe anybody moving out of their own country would be like that, but there's something there's just something about Ireland that really has a hold of you, and like the diaspora that are all over the world, it's like it's actually feckin' heartbreaking, when you talk to them, and the amount, I don't know, there just seems to be ramped up, like how much Irish people miss Ireland. And I'm always curious about that because I don't know, like I mean I have theories because Ireland's the best obviously, and why would everybody not miss it,
Yeah, because we'd really miss the damp and the rain. Yeah.
Well, you see, that's the thing, like what are they missing? That's the thing that I'm always curious about. Like I know personally, I honestly have serious doubts that I would be able to live anywhere else. I mean, when I travel, I hate it. It hurts me, right? Now I know I'm a big weirdo and I have a lot of my physical energy and my my mental and my emotional energy is very, very much tied up in Ireland, like consciously and naturally. I think I've definitely cultivated that as well. So it's kind of my own fault. But, so that's kind of in the extreme, and that's, as I said, that's my fault. But there is this middle of the road where, the Irish people, like, you're talking to them about how much they miss Ireland and they've been away from it for so long, and, they wish that they could go back. And it's like, well, what do you miss? Was it the unemployment? Was it the stranglehold of the Catholic Church? Was it the rain? Was it the black mold in your bedroom? What are you missing here?
But it's bizarre, and I think like there is that thing that they call it the graw
The graw,
for the graw for the old sod.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't think that you could actually label it as in, well, what is it that you miss? And if you were to sit down and make a list of, we'll say, 100 things that you hate about Ireland, and there's only 20 of the things that you like about Ireland, you would still be drawn to the 20 and kind of going, well, forget the 100.
Yeah.
But like that again, a lot of people I would know who've moved away from Ireland, we'll say to Australia, to Central Europe, to the US, to Canada, and as much as they enjoy their new life and this is something that they've committed to fully, there's always this kind of draw back to the country for whatever reason. And I mean, on a small scale, like I was there, you were asking me, about moving away and would I miss the place. I grew up, say, about 4 miles from Tara. I grew a seed from an ash plant to put outside my back of my house. And it's only when you were just talking about it, I was going, it was a part of wanting to have a bit of home.
Yeah.
But not like an artifact or a bit of wallpaper or, or a cup or a mug. It had to be something connected to the earth.
Yeah.
And, and I have that and I nurture that now. And, it breaks my heart when I see my cat scratching the tree. We're nearly back to the whole sacrificing animals thing. But,
that's where those rumors started.
Very possibly. But it was that just to have that physical, tangible thing from home that was connected to the earth.
Yeah. And
that's what was important to me, was just, I suppose, the roots of it.
Yeah. And that's moving 2 hours away, not even 2 hours away, like an hour and a half from
an hour and a half away. Which is bizarre, yeah. But I've nearly, it's a crazy feeling and it's hard to define. But like what I've often heard in the the songs and the whole lot, this graw for the old sod, like that, it does break my heart when you see where people have moved away, we'll say, to England during the 80s and stuff, and it hasn't worked out for them. But was this whole thing of not wanting to come home as a failure or having to move away, we'll say, for economic reasons. Like if you want a lifestyle change and you want to live a different life, that's fine. But to be forced into having to give up where you live, I think it's heartbreaking. I see that for myself, we'll say, with what's happening, we'll say, in Syria. And that does break my heart, that these people are having to be forced out of home. They're not making a conscious choice going, oh, well, you know what, we'll just tag along. Or we'll say what happened, we'll say, during World War II, where you had all these different people having to move, not because they want to, but because they've been forced into it. And I suppose a lot of people will still have that kind of draw for their country or their homeland. And, it's because they haven't made that choice. But I think Irish people, when they always miss something. There's always something that they'll miss.
Yeah.
Like that, the mold, the flat 7-Up.
The Lucozade.
The Lucozade.
Lucozade when you're sick. I don't know. Do they have Lucozade in other countries? I don't know.
I don't. Possibly England or what's in America.
Yeah, they'd have it in
Gatorade. Yeah.
No, Gatorade is different than Lucozade, you crazy person.
Is it?
Yeah. Isn't it?
Oh, I have to get out more, really.
It would be, wouldn't it? Though Gatorade is like, I don't know. Oh, okay. Oh, wait, now. Excuse me. I withdraw my crazy person statement because I actually don't know what Gatorade is. So,
is it made from gators? I don't know.
Oh. Freshly squeezed gators.
Yeah. It's always something silly that you miss, and you just, I don't know whether is it just the feeling of the grass or the color of the grass or the rain and the damp. I think it's the fact that you might give out about it because it rains 360 days a year, and you'll give out about it. But then when you're away and in a different country for a period of time, and you're going, it's too hot. Like, gosh, the weather was. Actually, you couldn't. Irish people going away on holidays, even to Spain, and they go, "Jizz was too hot." You're going, but sure, that's what you went for. You knew it was going to be 30 degrees. But it was too hot. It was too hot. It was uncomfortable.
We're a temperate people. Middle of the road.
Yeah, it was just as a kind of throwback to kind of like we're a temperate people. I happened to be or I went out for something to eat the other night, and somebody asked there was spare ribs on the menu, and the person I was having dinner with turned around and I said, "Oh, are the ribs nice?" And the waiter just turned and said, "Well, he says they're flying out the door, and sure, nobody said anything bad about them." But I was thinking, so this is Ireland. We don't give out about stuff. We don't complain about the service or the quality of the food. What we do is we go, "Ash, that was nice. Did you enjoy that?" "I did, yeah." And as soon as the waiter has his back turned and you walk out the door, you're going, "Oh, that stuff was terrible. It was horrible. The worst ribs I ever had in my life." So
yeah, and you tell about 20 of your friends.
Oh, that's it. But we're not that tempered, really.
Yeah,
we just don't like to make a song and dance about it.
We don't like giving out.
Yeah.
And actually, that's an interesting one because like we take the piss out of ourselves all the time for not complaining and all the rest of it. But can I just hold my hand up for the fucking post-colonial trauma that actually is the root of that? Because no, seriously, because what happened when you complained when somebody was taking something from you or there was serious shit going on? What happened when you complained?
Oh, well, it obviously comes from somewhere. If the musical Oliver, or we'll say, was Oliver Twist was set in Ireland, there was no way Oliver would go back up looking for a second helping,
No.
He'd be just going, "Did you have enough?" "Yeah, loads."
It was grand. It was grand.
"Well, yeah, I'm fine."
Grand. Yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine.
I suppose, and I never really thought of it that way, that if he did ask for anything, the consequences were horrendous.
Imagine Oliver Twist now being in a fucking Magdalene Laundry or one of the mother and baby homes and going up and asking for more. Sorry, now I was actually going to make a joke about it fucking ending up in a tomb, but that's that gallows humor that it's horrible. It's actually horrible.
It's that dark humor that I think the Irish we've had to kind of evolve, because if we didn't, I think we'd become such a browbeaten race of people. If we didn't have that gallows humor, or we didn't try and find the kind of humor in the dark side of it. Of things or in life, because for between the thousands of years of oppressions, and from one invasion to the next, and if you didn't laugh at it or take the piss out of yourself, we would just I don't know what we'd never get out of bed in the morning.
Yeah, and I don't know, there's a big dose of that too. So anyway, we should yeah. I always, every time I do any kind of an interview or chat with anybody, I always end up talking about colonialism.
But it's hard not to, though, because it's such a huge part of our culture. Here in Waterford last weekend, I don't know if you got a chance. I know Brianna was involved.
Oh, the festival, no, I didn't.
Yeah. I have to say, it was absolutely amazing.
I heard it was great, yeah.
Yeah, but we were there celebrating the fact that Waterford is is primarily a Viking settlement, and part of me at some point in the middle of it was just going, okay, will we be doing this will we be celebrating this in 50 years' time of Cromwell coming over and the invasion of the Normans, in 1169, and are we going to be celebrating that now as well? It was just a little bit surreal at one stage for me. I was going, okay.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And the Vikings did cause a lot of shit, but they also settled. And I think one thing that the Irish are great for is, you'd be fighting to the death with somebody 1 minute, and then as soon as they move in, it's like, Ash of the grand.
Yeah, but that's it. You go, oh, but sure, didn't they settle here? Sure, they must have liked it.
Yeah,
you say, didn't they marry some of the locals? And sure, they're as local as ourselves. And you're just going, okay.
Yeah.
The Ulster plantation, we're not looking on that too favorably at the moment. But maybe
No, but that was
100 years.
different. No,
Yeah,
the plantation. Like the
yeah.
Vikings came in and like, yeah, they kind of, they robbed and they raped and all the rest of it, and they took shit away. But when they actually came here, they really did integrate. When you look at the history of it, like they helped build the cities or whatever, but it wasn't just Vikings in the cities, and there
Oh,
wasn't the same like oppression over. I mean, I'm sure there was pockets of it, the same as, personalities and all the
yeah.
rest of it, but there wasn't the same, like the Ulster plantations was systematic, like, and
Oh,
the
it was
Cromwell and,
it was ethnic cleansing
it
by
was,
another
it
way. But
was, it was.
with the Vikings, it's a bit like the life of Brian. Well, what did the Vikings ever give us? Well, they gave us cities,
Yeah.
and they gave us proper houses as opposed to wooden timber shacks, and gave us fancy boats, and
So
there
they're
was
grand lads. They're grand,
yeah.
grand lads.
For sure, look, sure, they were a bit rowdy with a few drinks on them, but sure, they were grand.
But so are
Um,
we.
yeah. So, but I think personally, like it is nice that we're celebrating things like that. But
Yeah,
there was just a little kind of thing in the back of my head going,
that's
really?
fair.
What's the next one?
That's fair. That's fair. If you ever suggest to me though that we're running a Cromwell celebration festival, I'll plant you myself. Just laying that out there, right?
No, you're okay. I won't.
That is not happening at the Waterford Move.
No, I can't see that happening. I can't see that one taking off actually either.
No.
It's not going to fly.
O'Brien celebrating colonialism. Nope.
No, it's not going to happen. Yeah, it's not going to go down well.
Okay, so if you could make every person beginning on this path read just one book, what would it be? So say there was like an influx of 50 new people that we had to deal with at the Moot, right? And
Yes.
they were all going to be asking us questions and, wanting to find out all about this. And you could guarantee that they'd all read at least one book, before they arrived, so that at least that bit was sorted. What would that book be?
Ooh, that's a tough one
I
because
know, it always gets everybody.
does it? Like I'd be kind of, I just thought people it would trip off people's tongues, and I think the problem I think it is because paganism has so many different, we'll say, kind of own paths. So everyone kind of chooses their own path and what draws themselves to, we say, either to a deity or to a particular way of practicing.
But stick to the Irish stuff generally. So like if they were all going to be interested in Irish paganism or Irish spirituality, like, and there was one book that you could guarantee that they'd all read so that they didn't ask at least those questions, what would the book be?
Oh, there's one or two that would jump out at me, and for me, there was, I suppose, when I was looking, there was one book there about. There's a few. I know Morgan Daimler has a few great books that are there.
Yeah.
There's another one I started reading. Stephanie
Woodfield.
That's the one.
Mm-hmm.
Stephanie Woodfield has some good books that I personally do like, and I've got quite a lot from. So there's that. There was a book that I got years ago. The book by Celtic Rituals, Alexei
Alexandra Kondratiev. I'm pronouncing that horribly.
My pronunciation is terrible. And I think it's Kondratiev.
Maybe. Sorry.
I'm trying to put some sort of kind of Eastern European kind of slant on it. And like that was a book that I really, really enjoyed.
Yeah, I like that one because I think personally, I remember actually my mom gave me a copy of that when I was writing my first book, I believe, and she was like, is this the book you're trying to write? And I was like,
seriously?
yeah. And was it my first book or my second book? I'm sure I have a copy of it here
Oh,
somewhere.
so many books. I'm such a published author. So many
No,
books.
no, no. I didn't mean that. No, I'm just trying to remember what year that book was published in so I could figure out if it was my first or my second. But she handed it to me, and it was really useful in that like I like the Irish bits in it, but I think as well that it was like, because it was Celtic, it was kind of like catch-all Celtic. So
Yeah.
I have no interest in Welsh stuff or Scottish stuff. I know that there's huge amount of crossover, but I'm just, you know me, I'm fucking laser focused,
Yeah.
blinkers on as far as anything else goes. So like I really like that book, like for a general kind of Celtic intro.
That would be the book that I kind of, I'm not saying I would have started on, but it was definitely one of those books that for me was just like, yeah, okay, it's not laser focused. It is a bit of a catch-all situation where you have a lot of different things happening, but I think it gives you a bit of a grounding.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and it gives you a bit of an insight.
Yeah. Can you see, I don't know now. Oh, there, hang on. There it is. Celtic rituals. So it's Alexei Kondratiev.
Right.
Maybe? Yeah.
Yeah, mine is slightly different.
And it was, let me just get the year. Yeah, it would have been my first book because it was 1998 when it was originally published. So, oh no, wait. Yeah, this edition was 99. So, so yeah, it's been out quite a while, and it is a good one. Like, it covers a lot of ground, and I think you're right. Like, as a kind of a catch, you know, if you're interested in Celtic stuff as opposed to, you know, Wicca or anything like that, it's a really good starting point.
Yeah, and for me, that was one of the kind of books that kind of stood out. Now, as I said, I've got some books by Stephanie, and I got some books by Mórrígan as well.
Yeah,
And
Morgan Daimler's Irish, is it Introduction to Irish Paganism, or?
Yes, I think that's it.
Title wrong, and I don't have it on the shelf here. I think it's been loaned to somebody actually.
Oh.
It's all right. I have a notebook. I write.
Seriously?
Yeah, no, I write down. Are you kidding me? The amount of books I give out over the years and never get back.
Oh no,
I loaned Orla the Sheila na Gig one, and she ordered her own copy, and she was like going through it so carefully and like really frustrated that she couldn't write on it, and you know,
and scribble notes on it and just kind of go through it, like, yeah.
Yeah, and as soon as hers arrived, she handed it back.
Well, at least she handed it back.
Oh yeah. Well, she did get it with a warning that you know, I have your name written in my bullet journals, so I'm coming for you if if I don't get it back. I have my brain, I would never remember who I loaned a book to, so I have it written down. My bullet journal is my external brain. I'm not even joking. I know I've said that before, and I will say it again because I keep forgetting because it's not written down in my bullet journal. So,
yeah, well, look, I know. I mean, yeah, the book that you're talking about, because I have it there, Irish Paganism by Morgan Damer.
Yes.
And
really good one.
It's really, really good now. I really enjoyed it. So thankfully, there's a lot of kind of Irish ones coming out. And especially, yeah, there's some really, really good ones. And like, in fairness to you, I remember I got one of your original copies of your.
Oh God, blast from the past.
What?
That's worth a lot of money now. Do you know that?
Do you know something? You actually, it's one of your autographed ones.
Oh.
Yeah, no, there you go. But yes, and what stood out for me, and it's not trying to be fancy or whatever, but like, for me, it was because it was Irish and it was written, you know, from an Irish person for an Irish perspective. I just thought was definitely one of the books that I enjoy reading over and over again. So
yeah, well, it was a case of like, any book that I've ever written, Paul, is just because I couldn't find it already written. And like, that's why I haven't written a Mórrígan book, because Morgan Daimler and Morpheus Ravenna have written excellent Mórrígan books. So I don't have to do that work right now.
which is good.
It is fantastic. I mean, I will write one at some stage but it'll be, I'll be able to write a personal one then, you know, where I don't have to do that work, you know, that they had to do, because there wasn't anything before that I would recommend. There was a couple, but there wasn't anything that I would be able to kind of recommend to people or stand over. So I was like,
Yeah,
oh, I'm going to have to write one. And then it was like,
and
nope.
that is the tough one, is to try and put that level of work to produce something that is so accessible, and
Yeah.
you know, it's huge, you know. So you know, I don't know what way you would like to kind of work that now in the future, but
Well, I'm currently writing my Pagan priesthood book, so that's contracted with Llewellyn. So
lovely, brilliant.
I'm really focused on that one, and I started writing it a while ago, and there's been a couple of kind of various scandals and stuff in the priesthood, in the pagan priesthood in America, and you know, just horrible shit coming out about people who really should have known better and done better, you know. And it's really kind of solidifying my drive for it, because again, because it's a book that I needed, you know, and I've cobbled together bits and pieces, but I would like to actually go back and, like, if I could give this book to my earlier self, it would make my life a lot easier. So that's what I want to do for other people, basically. That's how I write all my books, is just, you know, me 5 years ago, before I had to do this whole raft of like really, really hard work.
But it's something that's like, and I suppose going back to where I was starting off, like that, you're kind of so far behind in the game that by the time the stuff that you know and you look back and you kind of go, well, if I had that, you know, it would have meant so. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not that you're looking for things to be just handed to you, because I think a lot of the thing with Irish spirituality is that it is a lot of that is a kind of like self-exploration yourself and putting the legwork in and the grind in. But it's nice to be able to kind of have something at the end of it that you can aim for.
Yeah, a couple of
And put the work.
signposts, Paul.
Yeah, that's it. Signposts along the way. There's nothing worse than actually slogging away and then get to the end and it's just a huge cliff and you're just going, okay,
yeah.
come back.
I should have taken that left turn fucking 2 years ago, like, you know.
Yeah, but look, you live and learn, and I suppose everything brings itself back to itself, because you know you're better for it.
Yeah.
Even though at the time you're just going, okay, I'm up to my neck in mud here, but look, it'll be fine.
Yeah, it'll be grand.
Yeah, it'll be grand. A cup of tea and a little sit down, and I'll be grand. Everything will be good.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think like I don't know. I mean, is there ever going to be? I don't think there's ever going to be like a comprehensive. This is how you do Irish paganism. Not written by an Irish person anyway, because we're too individualistic, you know. And like, I know personally, anything that I've written, it's always like it's this rough kind of guide to where you might want to be going, and these are other paths that you can check out, and you can kind of, you know, pick your window here. But like, I would be very, very hesitant about, you know, writing a book, and I think any Irish person would be, that was kind of the one true way kind of bullshit, you know.
Yeah, to turn around and actually write on the very top of it the definitive guide. You know, and especially as an Irish person, you know there will be somebody who will actually take you down one.
Can you imagine?
Yeah, and I think that's the scary part of it, of Irish people, as this, nobody wants to be the one to kind of go, that's it now, I know it all. I that's why we're very I don't really, and I say this kind of tongue in cheek, I can't really see where we're going to have like the next Einstein or Stephen Hawking or person from Ireland, because we're just be too afraid to actually go, well, this is actually the way it is, because we'd very potentially kind of go, somebody say, make a suggestion, and we'll end up going, sure, you know what, I think you're right.
Well, that's the unhealthy side of it, like the begrudgery of it, you know. And
I think that's it. And you know, it's actually putting yourself out there to do it, but I think it is worth it. but it's just getting that mindset and just trying to change the mindset. And
yeah, well, I think that we can have a balance between, pushing ourselves past that, like, who does she think she is kind of bullshit that, is very much a part of the Irish experience, getting ideas above our station, having notions,
notions,
notions.
Avocados.
So, like, we can move beyond the, the notions element of it and produce really good work, or have really good ideas, or, be really good at something. And that's grand. But the other side of that, then, it's just as harmful if you're developing a cult around yourself and this is the only way that it should ever be done and all of that. And I just can't see, we have to push so hard to get just to our regular kind of, yes, I am actually kind of good at this and I can write a book about it, or I can teach a class about it, or, we actually have to step so far over ourselves to get to that point. I really can't see any Irish person going beyond that.
Yeah, it's like reaching for the stars and kind of going and coming up short, going, sure, didn't I tell you wouldn't get there? It's just, if we're good at something and people are good at something, and it has to be developed. But I really would like to see that now.
Yeah, and it's kind of sad, and it's like, it's something that, like, no, as far as I know anyway, no Irish person had written a book on paganism, like a published book on paganism before. I could be wrong in that now, but like a traditionally published, shall we say?
Yeah, it's not something that I can actually hand on heart say that I think if I had come across it, I think it would have made such a mark that you would really.
I was looking for like I was really looking hard for Irish voices. So, and I didn't find any anyway. So I'm not saying that it's definitively, but like I said, it was the book that I needed, so that's why I went ahead with it. But yeah, it's like, it's kind of sad as well that, like, how many authors and teachers and really experts are we missing out on because they're kind of hiding their lights under bushels because of all that begrudgery and being afraid of being accused of having notions.
Yeah, and actually, and it does happen. As soon as somebody mentions it, even like, I know there's been a couple of kind of books published, like for localities and around, people have written books down here about Butlerstown and the kind of sites around Butlerstown, or just the history of a townland. And, you get that kind of mindset where people are kind of going, oh, who does he think he is now? And there he is now, and he's an author, and sure, you know what I mean? He only got a D in Pass English.
Right.
And here he is now, the next author. And it's a terrible thing if somebody's good at it, and if they put the work in, it should be acknowledged for what has been delivered, as opposed to kind of going, oh, well, here we go again.
Yeah. And, I'm going to raise the flag again for, like, post-colonial trauma, because I'm not even joking, because that is actually, like, psychologically you can trace that right back, because when nobody has anything, you do begrudge anybody who has something that's a little bit more than you.
Oh yeah, I mean,
and it is that, like, and it's that survival. It's actually called a famine mentality. Like, in psychological terms, it's called a famine mentality.
But you can only imagine, yeah. But like, it's
like, it's in us, like, it is.
And it is that, because if somebody gets something, okay, there's a fine line between that kind of family mentality and, we say, capitalism, but it is that where you look at things and you just go, well, do you know what? They don't see the kind of work that's gone in, or the hard work, or the hours of graft, or sitting behind a laptop at like 4 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. And, trudging around, trudging around different places. And then they don't see that. All they see is an end product, and they're just, well, if I had maybe tried a bit harder, but it's easier to knock than build up.
Yeah, yeah. The overnight success after 10 years of, 20-hour days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Made the breakthrough after 20 years.
Yeah. So speaking of going back and, you know, stuff that you wish you had, what advice do you wish that someone had given you when you were starting as a baby pagan? What advice do you wish someone had given you that you would like to give people starting out on this path? So like Irish specifically, you know, if somebody wants to, you know, you were looking for Irish spirituality the same way I was, the same way we all were, I think, back in the day. And like, what advice do you wish that someone had given you, like, where you kind of like, oh, if I'd known that, you know, I would have avoided that path up to that cliff kind of thing?
I think for me anyway was, I think the important thing initially in starting out is, if you feel that this is a path for you, you know, stay with it. Because, you know, a lot of people would take the kind of, you know, if this is something that you feel you believe in, stand your ground. Don't have, you know, people would say kind of just passing over you and just saying, oh, look, you know, he's not notions, but like, you know, or they're just,
Dismissive, like,
yeah, they're trying to be different.
Yeah.
So I think the key part for me was that, like, you know, accept the fact that people will try and knock you, and just to stay with it. There's a lot of good kind of things out there. Whereas if somebody had said to me, kind of going, well, if you had, we'll say when you were about 16 or 17, if you had actually just not grasped the nettle, but if you had literally just decided to get out and just look for people. I think at 16 and 17, I think I was quite shy in approaching people about the subject. I'm saying, you know, with the things now, if I had been 16 or 17 and when I had seen whoever it was say at Tara, to have the confidence in yourself and your belief to go up and talk to that person. That, I think from me, I think it was a lot of kind of, well, why would they want to talk to me?
Yeah.
I think there is a lot of openness within Irish spirituality. I think people are willing to kind of reach out and support.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and I think that's where the advice I would have given to myself was, just, you know, have the confidence in your convictions. What you're doing, you're not a freak, you're not weird. You know, what you're doing is important to you, and just feel happy, or not feel happy, but just have that confidence to actually just ask or to talk to someone. Whereas I think when I started out, I was just afraid to kind of actually go and approach the subject with people that maybe I would have seen around, but would have went, they wouldn't have had any interest in me.
Yeah. And I think you really hit the nail on the head there. Like, Irish people will talk to you, you know, will talk to anybody, like. And we don't, you know, we're only delighted, like, especially pagans, I think, because, you know, if somebody's approaching you like with an open mind, and we'll say 18 because I know things get very complicated when it's like 16 or 17.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah. But it's a whole other, you know, if you are 16 or 17 and you're interested in this stuff, you know, I would suggest to go through maybe Pagan Life Rights Ireland, or, you know, an official organization just that would have the training and the experience to be able to deal with a minor, right? So I'm just going to put my health and safety hat on for that one. But we'll say, but we'll say at 18, you know, if somebody is say turning up to the moot or whatever, or, you know, coming to an event, or just chatting to you on Tar or at Rathcroghan or wherever, you know, like, I know myself, you'd be only fucking delighted that somebody wasn't taking the piss out of you, or, you know, that they had a genuine interest, like, and, you know, and I mean, for myself personally, and I know I'm not the only one, like, I would have a very special place, you know, in my attention span, shall we say, for young people in Ireland starting out, you know, and even to the point, like, all of my stuff that I do, just if anybody's listening out there and you're Irish, as in somebody who's living in Ireland, if you're Irish and you're under 21, like, all my stuff that I do is free for under 21s, because, you know, I really want to support and I really want to help. And I think that kind of attitude is very prevalent within our community, you know, and you'd want to give people the best start, and, you know, you'd want to connect them to other people that would be, you know, the best fit for them, and all that kind of stuff, because it's all about the networking in Ireland, isn't it? You know?
It is. And as I said, I've been lucky enough that in my life to date, I haven't come across a bad pagan.
Mm.
No, I'm not saying that the ardent, it's like the bad apples, but I've been lucky enough that the people I've come across have been all very open, very supportive, and very embracing, which is an amazing thing.
Yeah.
And I think that goes back then to, it definitely goes back to, say, Irishness and Irish culture and Irish community, where, you know, we want to kind of embrace people. And we want to kind of bring everyone on board. We want to talk to people, as you said, and just be engaged with them. You know, and like, I think there's no reason. I think the Irish people are just some of the most fantastic active listeners and storytellers. So we, you know, we want to talk, but as you said, and you're totally right, that, you know, there are so many organizations, we say, with pagan life rights now, and, you know, just opening up that there are connections there, and people shouldn't be afraid to, you know, ask or look for things. But I mean, it is an honourable thing to be doing, is, you know, giving that information to young people now.
Yeah.
Especially, I do believe, and it's something I fundamentally believe with Ireland, is I do believe Ireland is changing. I do think it's changing for the better, and I think it's, a lot of young people now are looking for something that's more connected to their own life and more that they can actually, you know, feel drawn towards. And
something that makes sense, like the available religion, you know, the main religion in Ireland is so disconnected, you know, and it's just, it doesn't make sense to the young people who are just looking at it right now, like, you know, what's in it for me, you know?
Yeah, like, you know, being a pagan, it hasn't even been a case of, for me, you know, well, what's in it for me? I mean, it's been what I've been drawn towards. It's what I've been happiest with.
Yeah, but that's what's in it for you. Like, you know, there's no, there's that connection there.
Yeah, I'm not sitting around a crystal ball looking for the lot of numbers. You know, and it's good. And I think hopefully over the next 5-10 years that there will be a huge seismic shift.
Yeah.
You know, with people.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, but that's the only advice I'd have.
Great advice. Okay, so we had a question from our group. So Orla said, how closely linked is your activism and spirituality? Is one an offshoot of the other, or completely separate, or somewhere in between? And as a corollary, nerd girl pronunciation, I know what it means. I just can't pronounce it. Corollary?
Yeah, I'll go with that.
How ridiculous is this? Apologies for my stupid pronunciation. Can we do like Irish language pronunciation? Because I can do that.
Thanks, Orla. That's a great
anyway, moving swiftly on. Does the activism serve as service and or worship?
Okay, I'm going to take the second part of that question first, because I'm just awkward like that. Does my activism serve as a service or worship? That I can definitively answer, and it's yes. That may sound quite extreme, but that's what I would say, that it is part of my service and it's part of my worship. I think not to do either. You know, the activism, that if I was to sit back and just ignore things, it's certainly not what the Mórrígan would expect from me. And I think from that point of view, is that yes, it is part of my service and worship to her. How closely linked is your activism and spirituality? Is one an offshoot of the other? And it is definitely something in between. Okay, so for me anyway, my service and worship to the Mórrígan would always mean that I have to be, you know, not in a battle mode, but definitely to have activism and just being out there and trying to do something right is it a part of my spirituality? It is when it comes to something that affects my spirituality. We say what was happening with the M3, you know, the motorway going through, we say, the Tara Valley. That directly affected my spirituality, simply because that was a site that was so sacred to me, and the whole valley was so sacred to me at the time, that it was something that had to be done. There had to be protest. There had to be some sort of activism done, and rightly or wrongly, that one did lead to the other. So would it be separate? I don't think it is separate. For me, anyway, personally. I think because certain things that are happening, we say at the moment here in Ireland with Repeal the Eighth, you know, that in itself would affect my spirituality because of my beliefs and who I worship. So for women's rights and what it means to women, it's indirectly linked to spirituality. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does to me anyway.
You know?
Yeah.
So for that reason alone, yeah, definitely. You know, it is definitely linked. So.
Yeah, and like I do find that my screen is frozen. I don't know. I can still hear you perfectly, but I don't know if the visuals are coming through or not.
I can still see you, so you're okay.
Okay, grand. The video might look a bit weird, so apologies for that if that's the case when the recording comes out. But it's something that is very, very common with Mórrígan followers. I can see obviously through the communities worldwide, is that activism is a large core of, or certainly hand in hand with the spirituality, you know, certainly side by side. In that a lot of Mórrígan followers are also activists for various causes. And like a lot of it is around social change. And, you know, like when you look at the myths and you know, her lore, she is the one who's kind of in and agitating for change and, you know, making sure that the right people are in the right place and, you know, the right cows are coming out of the right caves and all the rest of it. But like it is interesting to me, you know, that she's not a goddess of activism, you know.
No, it's not. Yeah, she's not. I mean, this might, I don't want to sound flippant, but she's not the Greenpeace of, you know, of the Parthenon of, you know, gods and goddesses.
Yeah.
But at the same time, where change needs to happen, where, you know, people are being disaffected, where people are being, you know, ignored, where people are being dismissed, it's her attributes as regards, you know, her anger, you know, it's the dark side of it, where she's using that for positive. That it's not that it's the simple case of, well, you know, she's the goddess of war, she's the goddess of death. You know, from death comes fertility, from death comes life. You know, and one thing is goes hand in hand with the other. And I think that's, you know, where sometimes it can be kind of misconstrued that, you know, it's all death and destruction, you know, like the goddess Kali. You know, it's not just a simple case of just like Miley Cyrus come in like a wrecking ball and just walk away. It's something more than that. And I think that's why there's such, you know, especially amongst, you know, Mórrígan followers, that you do have that activism. It's not because, you know, she's the, you know, the PC one or the liberal one. She's the one that, you know, inspires. She's the one that leads. She's the one that wants to bring you on. Through her, you know, just through the person that she is, that, you know, this is what's going to happen, has to happen for things to change. So I think that's it.
Yeah. I think there's a paper there if anybody wants to do it on, you know, instances of the Mórrígan law that, you know, correlate with social justice, because that'd be an interesting one to look at, wouldn't it? Okay, so my entire screen has frozen here. So again, apologies if the video just looks like a weird blank white wall, because that's all I have with Paul's half frozen face in the corner. So that was actually the last question, and I can't bring up, it says that Zoom is frozen, so I can't bring up the following slides. So again, apologies for that. I don't know what's going on. I got my new computer and everything, for God's sake.
Look, that was the thing, Laura. It was always going to happen. You know, at some point, I was just going to just wreck it. It's my fault.
It's not your fault. Absolutely not your fault. Don't make me get the Nerf gun.
Okay.
We have a Nerf gun in our house for like self-depreciating humor, and we, you know, you get shot with the Nerf gun if you're being mean to yourself.
Oh, I love it.
And if you don't have a Nerf gun to hand, you're allowed to give them a puck in the arm.
Okay. Yeah.
So.
Somebody uses a nice soft, you know, just foam tipped kind of bullet, and they're just using brute aggression.
Well.
Okay, fair enough.
Have you met me?
On occasion.
So,
yeah.
Anyway. So what I will do is put Paul's contact details and the Waterford Moot details and various other bits and pieces in the I'll put it in the email when I send out the files so that people on my mailing list will get it. And then when I put it up on YouTube next month, I will make sure that it's in the description and that all of that goes through in the video description, okay? So I'm going to have to leave it there because I don't know what's happening. Okay. So thank you so much, Paul, for your time.
Or Laura, it's always been a pleasure.
Yeah. Okay, and I will...
it's just that I've Orla's question up here.
Yes, I know.
So Freudian slip.
It's no problem. And my birthday's this month. You coming to my party?
Yes, I am indeed, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm still working out the whole royalty thing.
Okay. Royalty
I'm
theme.
thinking of going on Meghan Markle, but we'll see.
Okay. Good.
You never know.
Right, well, we'll chat soon, okay?
Listen, Laura, thanks a million, and we'll talk to you soon, all right?
Talk to you soon. Slán.
Have a good one. Slán.
You too. Bye.